So the first part of this video is in relation to the server. The server would obviously deal with the first shot, the serve, and then the third ball. And the first exercise that you can see me performing here is obviously my serve followed by a split step. As we all know, the split step is a very important movement that we should all be practicing. It gets you balanced. It gets you ready to set off in any direction that might come from the ball off your opponent. And as you can see, my split step off my serve is a split step back. The reason being, I obviously try and push off my legs through my serve, up and forwards to the highest point I can reach, which leads me into a jump over the baseline before I land. Therefore, I split step back. Your next exercise is to practice a full serve, getting your split step in, and then immediately turning and performing a full ground stroke. I'm still trying to make sure as I practice my serve that I put all the elements into place. As I pull the racket back, I get the leg bend, I get the drive up to the point of contact, I get my split step, I then get the turn, which helps me take my racket back to then perform the full technique of my ground stroke. Now this is obviously a side view. As you can see, I'm trying to drive up and forwards before I immediately turn. And as you can see, I have a slight loop on my ground stroke, especially my forehand side, to help me generate more racket head speed through the air going at the ball. There's the leg bend, there's the drive up, the land, the split step, the turn, and then the drive of that racket through. I'm obviously a double-handed backhand, so I use two hands on that backhand side. The next exercise after you perform your serve is to then go and hit the ground stroke, practicing a side step shuffle, one of the movements that we've talked about in previous videos. Still concentrating on all the elements of your serve. Before you land, you split, and then you have a little side step shuffle. And it's very important that you practice that recovery step also. The next one, after the side step shuffle, which is movement a little bit further away, is the crossover step before crossover stepping back to where you started. And again, just performing it off the backhand side. Performing the serve, the drive, the land, the recover, the crossover step, the performance of the swing, the crossover step back. And the final one, running steps towards the ball. So in whatever space you can, you perform your serve, you land, you split, you prepare the racket, and you start practicing some running steps forwards or sideways, whichever way you want. But then you practice performing your technique by swinging the racket whilst those feet are running. And don't forget, now that we're practicing combination shots, if you have any grip changes, for example, between your serve and your ground strokes, make sure that that is part of the exercise, getting those grip changes. And that completes the combination shots for the server who begins. We're now into the returner. The returner obviously deals with the second shot and the fourth shot. Again, as you all know, in my opinion, the first 3 or 4 shots in the game of tennis are the most important ones. So the first shot is obviously the return of serve, and this is a great little exercise to practice if you've got a wall somewhere or anything that you can go and stand up against. So as you take the racket to the side, obviously one of the things I talked about in the return of serve video is having an abbreviated take back, especially if you are receiving a very hard serve. So you don't want a full big swinging take back because you could make contact with the ball late. So you have an abbreviated take back so you can deal with that pace. We're now on to the return of serve, immediately followed by a ground stroke. I'm doing it a little bit quicker than you would normally probably be receiving that ground stroke, just to practice fast footwork and fast movement. There are many different combinations you can do for this. After that return of serve, you can then practice going forwards off the return of serve and performing an approach shot or performing a volley, but I'm just mainly practicing here the abbreviated take back, the lunge step for the return there, before I immediately push back and immediately get the full turn to then practice a full ground stroke. We're now into shots that both players could play. So the first combination to practice is an approach shot followed by a volley. Now remember, on the approach shots, the 3 ways of moving forward. As I'm demonstrating here, the first one is to hop through as you perform the approach shot before you perform your volley. If it's a really short ball, remember you're trying to run through it. And still make sure before you perform the volley, you get a little split step before the technique. The final one is if it's a really short ball, but it's a high ball, so you've got lots of time, the ball might bounce higher. So therefore you split and jump. Another little tip on this one is to take the racket head back higher also. And the final exercise is a volley onto a smash. Remember, the smash technique, different to the serving technique, is mainly that you don't take the racket down past your legs. You go from the ready position straight up into the trophy position. Still practicing the split steps, the separation of the hands if you use one hand on your backhand volley, before the drive up towards the smash. A couple of variations on this one. You could practice going for a low volley before reaching up for the smash, or a high volley before going up for the smash, as I'm about to demonstrate. Again, it's very important that if you have any grip changes between shots, that you practice the grip changes also. So that completes this video for combination shots for you to go out and practice. I hope it's helped, and we'll see you soon.